Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us here at KAKM for Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. On the first graphic here, of course, the change of the Alaska Weather on the Alaska Weather headlines. Still, the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit webpage is changing Friday, July 14th. So take a look at the new links, maps, PIREPs, things like that, and see what you think. Anyway, on the satellite imagery from yesterday, we had a system out here in the eastern Gulf of Alaska, moisture flowing north and northeastward into the southeast coast, coming back and around into along that frontal boundary there along the North Gulf Coast, with a lot of cloudiness spreading into the central interior up to about the Alaska Ranger, then breaking out north of the mountains, Fairbanks on out to the Arctic coast, looking pretty good. More clouds here to the west, and just about completely cloud covered out here over the Bering Strait, Chukchi Sea. A few breaks though over Bristol Bay, and you've got to get all the way out to just west of Shemya to get into any clearing, it looks like. Although a little bit did occur right in here in the that part of the low pressure system behind this band of moisture right through there. And looking at today's imagery, you can see a system sliding some moisture into the far western Aleutians there, and the main center hanging back to the northwest. Clouds over the Bering Sea, just a narrow band of breaks here down to just about around the Adak area. And then Atka back into the clouds eastward, all the Copper River Basin clouds and rain through here today, Alaska Peninsula. Very weak frontal boundary from about roughly Kodiak Island, from a weak low center right up along the North Gulf Coast here, and then on down across the Panhandle, keeping it cloudy and occasionally wet across much of that area. On back to the west here, with some showers developing over the Copper River Basin, over the mountainous terrain, and a band of clouds through here, thunderstorms developing on the northern edge of that mostly, right through there this afternoon. And then that kind of ends, just showers back to the northwest with the, again, the thunderstorms mostly on the north and northeast edge of that cloud shield there, and then scattering on down into the eastern, or the end of the 40-mile country down toward North Waitok. But not too bad. And then the light rain at times along the North Gulf Coast, and breezy with winds possibly gusting 25-30 miles an hour in a narrow band ahead of this frontal system there, but otherwise pretty light winds with it, and the rain not all that heavy. Light rain at times across Bristol Bay today with areas of fog, and then drizzle, light rain, drizzle, fog, low clouds, areas of IFR here covering much of the Bering Sea here from the Aleutians all the way north toward the Bering Strait. Sunshine there, eastern north slope, looks like on out to the Arctic coast, and then also again some weak ridging right through here, a little bit of clearing there, as I mentioned, over the central Aleutians. Ahead of this next feature that's pushing in, we'll see for tonight that front pushes eastward here, weak ridging, dry, keeps it dry, but probably a lot of clouds and fog there for the Pribilofs northward into the Bering Strait and the Chukchi Sea. Low clouds and fog there. Main precipitation area still over Bristol Bay, the Alaska Peninsula, along this trough into Kodiak Island, but nothing very heavy with this, just kind of continuous, and that'll be where the lowest flying conditions are. Otherwise, scattered showers, inland areas of the Kenai Peninsula, and back toward Kachemak Bay, Iliamna, and a little bit over the southwest interior. Mostly clear, diminishing thunderstorms over the eastern interior tonight from the Alaska Range on up. Gradually, some of those may hang on through most of the night, but the main shower threat will be along that trough up there near the Brooks Range from that 1,004 millibar low, very close to Anatuvik, back to the northwest coast. Otherwise, staying pretty good there for the eastern Arctic coast and North Slope areas with low clouds, fog, and the stronger winds off the coast now. Those easterlies are just offshore, so not really affecting the coastal areas or anywhere inland. And this front more or less hung up here along the southeast coast, so it's going to keep occasional rain and clouds definitely in the area there. Low pressure back to the west. They'll keep sending surges of moisture and clouds northeastward into the area, at least through Saturday and probably Sunday as well. Tomorrow, another trough for the main front here, still right along the coast. Actually, several impulses coming up and then weakening as they move into Canada. So occasional light rain, drizzle, fog at times. Be other times when it doesn't rain, be kind of hit and miss, almost be like a showery condition going on. Same thing for the North Gulf Coast. Showers possible here, south central Alaska, Prince William Sound, on up into the interior. Some shower activity, thunderstorms mostly back up over the northwest central part of the state. And then again on down toward that low center, toward the eastern Tanana Valley areas. Otherwise, mostly cloudy out over the western interior, scattered showers anywhere from the Kilbrook Mountains northward there into Norton Sound. Seward Peninsula looks mostly dry, maybe some sun there over the inland areas, and a chance of some showers northwest coast. A little bit better leftover moisture here from that trough on the western Arctic coast, so look for some low clouds, fog, and drizzle there. But staying better off to the east, some showers possibly developing over the eastern north slope in the afternoon. And out to the west, that front continues to push slowly to the east, not really making that much progress. Most of the moisture sliding up to the northeast and north around this high pressure area. Really kind of just a weak ridge right through here and narrow. But that giving enough to allow the moisture to move into at least AKwx and possibly ATGA as well, with small craft advisory winds in advance of the front. Some of that rainfall could get into the Pribilos tomorrow afternoon. Outlook for Sunday, now all we got is a warm front here, milder conditions behind it, so definitely a warm front and warm front weather associated with it from St. Paul, St. George back northwestward, and that's low clouds, fog, drizzle, IFR, and that pattern is going to cover much of the Bering Sea here from the Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula northward to St. Lawrence Island, and also back out to the west. Probably loses the rainfall, but still a lot of low clouds. Could be some breaks in the overcast out there, and then thunderstorms again here, eastern interior back to the northwest there toward the western Brooks Range on the southern slopes. And possibly even over the eastern side there if you get enough moisture. Otherwise, the Arctic coast north slope looking pretty good with light wind conditions kind of swinging around now at the high here to the west. Those easterlies are going to go westerly for most of the coastline on central and eastern coast, except for the far eastern areas still hanging on to some easterly winds here, low pressure, and this pattern keeping that area in the easterly winds at about 20 knots. Otherwise pretty light right on down the west coast, Bering Sea. Sunshine, a fair amount of it actually from the southwest interior, even Bristol Bay, partly and mostly sunny, some scattered showers developing in the afternoon. Mostly sunny and dry all the way up into the Noatak Valley there. And then again, the thunderstorms trough right through here, keeping showers, possible thunderstorms, mainly along the western Alaska range, and then down as it crosses the Kenai Peninsula and Fognak Island there. Otherwise, looks like a dry day possibly with maybe a little bit of sun for the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound. Copper River Basin, not that bad. Call it partly sunny to mostly cloudy with some scattered showers. And then this trough keeping numerous showers in over the Panhandle there. Looks like the last good surge of moisture coming in. So Sunday looks pretty wet, but more showery in nature as far as the rainfall goes. And then possibly drying out Sunday evening and night. And then for temperatures this afternoon down there, just mid to upper 50s, although Stewart pursed up to 64, Skagway 58. Otherwise 56 at Petersburg and Gustavus, with 54 at Elfin Cove, 57 Yakutat. There's a 59-degree reading over there at Cordova, and 55 in Whittier with 54 at Seward. On the Kenai Peninsula, Kamishak Bay, 59 there at Homer, and a 58 at Kenai. Lower 60s up in the valley, both Madanuska and Susitna valleys, with the Talkeetna at 62, Palmer same reading, 64, a little milder in the Copper River Basin at Gulkana. Up in the Tanana Valley, 60s to near 70, 71 at Eagles, but only 66 there at Fairbanks. Add 10 degrees to that though at Fort Yukon, some good sunshine there up into the Brooks Range. Both Anatuvik and Arctic Village, 74 degrees. And the Arctic coast, lower to mid 40s, but inland areas, 53, Atasuk, 57 Point Lay, and near 60 here over the northwest coast, Kotzebue at 59, 67 though at Ambler. and 60 degrees there at McGrath, with right around 60 out here out to Norton Sound, all the way down to Bethel, same temperature, upper 40s near 50 along the coast, and Savunga, 47 degrees, Nome up to 54. And for the Pribilofs, right around 50 degrees, both St. Paul, St. George. Same thing here, Alaska Peninsula, Cold Bay on Alaska, 50. Averaging out to 50 there for the Adak-Atka area, and a little cooler out towards Shemya. Otherwise, the peninsula here, 50s, 64 King Salmon, and a 50-degree reading at Kodiak. With tonight's lows, pretty mild again, the very long, very short night, so near 60 in some areas for the upper Yukon Valley, otherwise 50s. Lower 50s, cool into the mid-40s along the coast. Arctic coast, mid-30 or upper 30s there for the lows around the central coast. And 40s and 50s here, south central Alaska, 50s for the Panhandle. Highs for tomorrow back into the 70s, 75 to 80-ish here for the Yukon Flats, into the Tanana Valley, mid to upper 70s, and near 70 again for the Susitna Valley, and 50s for the Panhandle, maybe a little up into farther into the 50s than what you saw today, and then again maybe not. 40s out here over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. And for flying weather, we've got IFR late tonight, early tomorrow, central eastern Arctic coast, possibly due to some fog maybe developing, and also here over the southern Panhandle, marginal VFR on up to the passes and westward to Cape Yakataga, then VFR, Prince William Sound, and IFR there in the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, down to about Nelson Lagoon, then marginal. Lots of IFR out here over the Bering Sea, and looking at that into the afternoon, that band kind of narrows and pushes eastward with the front there, and approaches the St. Paul, St. George area in the afternoon, extending back across to Adak, west of Atka to Shemya, and a little less IFR now on the coast up there, mostly restricted to the central areas. And IFR pretty widespread here, Kodiak Island up, but not quite reaching the North Gulf Coast except from about Cordova. Although almost getting into southern Prince William Sound, but not quite western, and then down the coastline looks like IFR. And for the passes, Anatuvik, VFR with possible thunderstorms, risk of a thunderstorm for Adigan as well, otherwise VFR. Lake Clark and Merrill, no thunderstorms in VFR, same forecast for rainy, looking good there. Windy VFR, and developing clouds could make it marginal in the late afternoon, possibly. Same trend for Isabel and Mentasta, both possibly becoming marginal VFR in the late afternoon. And for Tanita, staying VFR. For Portage, marginal becoming IFR, possibly, especially on the eastern entrance. And for Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR becoming IFR into the afternoon. For the freezing levels, 8 to 10,000 feet here over the interior, a little cooler, about 6,000 feet or so, 6 to 7 through this zone, and about 10,000, 9 to 10,000 over the Panhandle. Out to the west, a little bit of a cool trough out through here, 4 to 6,000 feet, warming up a little bit out to the west. Icing threat with that front coming eastward here, coming in almost, or probably possibly reaching the Pribilofs late tomorrow afternoon, extending back into the west central Aleutians. And then big widespread area possibly here from Kodiak Island into Kachemak Bay, up across the Gulf of Alaska, southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula, spreading into Prince William Sound. Again, moisture surging northward here. So that's why bringing it down to marginal VFR in the passes there along the Alaska Range. Also some icing on the increase, possibilities of about 8,000 feet of the rime, possibly mixed variety, and then it'll extend on down the southeast coast. And for the jet stream, 18,000 foot wind flow chart with the 33,000 foot jet stream wind maxes on here. The main flow down to the south, well to the south, even cutting across the Queen Charlotte Islands. We've got one branch out of the south here, 40 to 50 knots, and generally southeasterly flow at this elevation, but lighter for the remainder of the interior. So 9,000 feet, sharp ridge out here right along the west coast areas, that kind of holding this thing back to the west here and locking this trough into the Gulf with narrow band of stronger winds, 20 knots there off the northern Panhandle, otherwise 25 to 35 easterlies there. Again, a narrow band right along the North Gulf Coast, falling back to about 20 to 25 as approached Kodiak, and then light and variable as soon as you reach the coastline northward, all the way up to the Arctic coast. Turning northerly, but these really light winds could be maybe 25 knots there, Shelikof Strait, 20 knots across the peninsula, and then southwesterlies back here to the west with that trough swinging across the Bering, 25 to 30 knots, possibly as high as 35 knots, another wind max coming along here into the central Aleutians. Light winds on the Arctic coast, mostly out of the east. Same thing at 3,000 feet. Those 35 knot winds, those are off the coast there and don't affect the coastline at all. Otherwise, the Brooks Range, North Slope, really light winds. Southward here, turning easterly on the light side. Begin up along the coast, a band of stronger winds in the 20 to 25 knot range, dying back toward the Kenai Peninsula and Kodiak, turning northwest 25 to 30 across the Aleutian range, Alaska range. And light winds along the coast, stronger, more general wind pattern out here, westerlies 30 to 35, and then turning south 20 to 25 up through the Bering Sea. And as far as turbulence goes, light to isolated moderate chop there due to that wind max, possibly Cape Yakataga, maybe Cordova back toward or south of Yakutat into the southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula. Otherwise, northwest breezes there. Could be some light to very isolated moderate chop, especially for small aircraft. Same thing here for the central Aleutians. A little bit better here than over on the peninsula. And after the break of Stargazer, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
There are many different types of aircraft being used in Southeast Alaska. Air commerce here is utilized the way the rest of the U.S. uses taxis, buses, and trucks. Helicopters and float planes are the most widely used aircraft. However, fixed gear and retractable gear aircraft are found in most Alaskan fleets. Be sure to monitor a local radio frequency at all times and make frequent position reports. It's important that you file a flight plan and stick to it. Then, if an emergency landing is imminent, the radio is already set to make a report. Be aware that several large air carriers land at Ketchikan, Wrangell, Petersburg, Sitka, Gustavus, and Juneau. Having good communication and keeping vigilant can save you from becoming a near mid-air collision or NMAC statistic. The vortices that are generated by these large aircraft can cause a smaller aircraft to be forced onto the runway during landing or departure. To avoid wake turbulence, try landing beyond the larger aircraft's touchdown point and take off prior to their rotation point. It's best to wait the recommended 3 to 5 minutes for wake turbulence abatement. If the tower does not make a recommendation for a wait for wake turbulence abatement, the pilot should make the request. While on cross-country flights, plot your course on the chart. Keep a close track of where you are at all times. It's easy for one inlet or bay to look very much like another. Pilotage is a skill that is alive and well in Alaska. Navigation aids are few and far between, and a GPS should only be used as a backup for the chart and pilotage. As a reminder, there are no GPS instrument approaches in Southeast Alaska at this time. Remember that alternating or flashing landing lights are unique to Alaska's aviation community. They are used to enhance visibility of aircraft in flight. A word of caution: remain within gliding distance of the shore when at all possible. The water is very cold, even in the summer. In the event of a forced water landing, the chances of survival are very slim due to hypothermia. Weather changes rapidly, and often the changes are not forecast. Making a 180-degree turn and a precautionary landing at the first available landing area, even a beach, can save your life. Pilots often wait out bad weather at an outlying strip or beach. You should always be prepared to lay over until better weather arrives. If the wind is blowing, chances are the skies will be clear, but the ride bumpy. Wind can be seen on the water in the form of whitecaps. This indicates that the water could be too rough for landing a float plane. It's wise to call flight service prior to departure to see what the surface conditions will be at your intended airport destination. As the saying goes, if you don't like the weather here, just wait 10 minutes. The 60 nautical mile trip to Haines from Juneau is fairly straightforward. One noteworthy item is the lack of beaches in the area. The slope of the mountains continues to the bottom of the canal, causing small rocky outcroppings in most areas. Flying up the Lynn Canal to Chilkat Inlet is the preferred route to Haines. The Lynn Canal has several prominent reporting points that are used by the local operators and private pilots. After departing Juneau to the west, you should fly to the right side of Lynn Canal, close to the land mass. Utilize the hemispheric rule for determining your flying altitude. The first prominent departure reporting points are Lena Point, T Harbor, Eagle Beach, and Benjamin Island.
Southerly winds 15 to as high as 20 knots here along the coast, turning southeast to 15 on the north coast. For Stevens Passage, northern Lynn Canal, or all of Lynn Canal, south 15 tomorrow, southeast 20 though for Clarence Strait. And then for the outlook for Sunday, light westerly winds 15 knots, dropping even lighter up there on the north coast, with seas only 6 feet, so no small craft advisories here for the coast or the inside waters, where light winds from the southeast 10 to 15 turn southerly at 20 for northern Lynn Canal. Prince William Sound for tomorrow, northeast 15, and we've got some easterlies there at 15, turning northeast along the western North Gulf Coast. Northerlies at 15, Barren Islands, northeast 15 there for the Shelikof Strait area, otherwise light and variable off the coast of Kodiak and Fognak Islands. Light and variable also for Kachemak Bay with light northerlies or northeasterlies for the inlet. And then for Sunday, they'll swing around to the south and stay light, just 10 knots, otherwise southeast 15. Kachemak Bay, southwest 20 now for Shelikof Strait, northwest 20 there on the east side of Kodiak, going light and variable here from the Barren Islands all along the North Gulf Coast and Prince William Sound. They'll seas down to 4 to 5 feet and even less so there, Prince William Sound down to 2 feet, and just 2 to 3 feet here for Cook Inlet and Kachemak Bay. For Bristol Bay tomorrow, light west winds, 10 knots, so staying light again like today there, 2-foot seas. West 20 down the peninsula, northwest 20, Castle Cape down to Cape Sarachev, lighter winds up towards Sitkinak. For Sunday, westerly winds at 20 knots, so picking up a little from Sitkinak to Castle Cape. Otherwise for the Alaska Peninsula, west winds 15, seas 4 to 5 feet. And up to 20 knots there in Bristol Bay with 5-foot seas out of the west. Fox Islands, mostly Unalaska Island, west 15 knots there, 3 to 5-foot seas, and increasing to 20 knots here in Nikolsky. On back out, increasing to small craft advisory level winds for Adak and Atka, as high as 30 knots, so west of Adak, west 25 for the western zone. And then those turn south, pretty light now for Sunday, southerlies at 15, and then southwest 15 to 20 knots here from the central Aleutians, extend all the way up across the Fox Islands with seas 5 to 7 feet, so no small craft advisories out for the Aleutians for Sunday. And for the southwest coast, light variable winds 10 to 15 knots, seas just 3 feet. Southerlies at 20 for the Pribilofs, turning southeast here for St. Matthew Island onto the west a little bit, and then back to south for St. Lawrence Island. And then those pick up to about 20 knots there for the St. Lawrence Island zone on Sunday. Seas 4 feet, not too bad. Southerlies at 20, 6-foot seas for St. Matthew Island. Southwest 15 here for the Pribilofs, right up into Kuskokwim Bay, and then turning south on the north side of Nunivak Island. Arctic coast there, pretty brisk on the east side, especially extreme east side where we've got brisk wind advisories out, 20 to 30 knots over toward demarcation point, falling back to 15 on the central coast. And swinging around, getting kind of variable here on the west side to westerly there for the Cape Beaufort on down to the Bering Strait with 2 to 3 foot seas, so nothing really significant wind or wave-wise going on there. And then those turn south at 10 to 15 on Sunday, west 10 knots, central and west side, increasing to 15 here on the eastern coast, and then abruptly going back to the east there over toward demarcation point at about 20 knots. And for, excuse me, tonight again, diminishing thunderstorms here over the central eastern interior, but some lingering in toward morning possibly with some scattered showers, but all that diminishing, although staying kind of active, a little more active along that trough axis up there in the north. And rainfall, light rain or drizzle at times there along the panhandle and North Gulf Coast, scattered showers, Prince William Sound. A little more widespread precip along Kodiak Island. That next front out west spread some rain into the Pribilofs tomorrow, extending back to the central Aleutians. Scattered showers, thunderstorms, again, mostly north of this trough and low pressure area over the eastern interior. And then for Sunday, we've got a trough extending from the Tanana Valley here down across mostly the Alaska Range and then across southern Cook Inlet. Best chance of showers will be in that location, and the thunderstorms eastern Alaska Range in the interior, on up maybe extending back to the northwest here to the southern slopes of the western Brooks Range. Mostly sunny in the west. Have a great evening and weekend.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.